Hey guys, Josh from the Ancient History Guy here. Hello and welcome to all. I hope you are having a fantastic day. Anyways, today we are going to be talking once again about Carthage. Now, we all know that Carthage was a colony that got so big that it became an empire. But how and why did it get to this point? Well, let's find out. So, to give you some backstory, Carthage was a trading colony of the great city of Tyre. The Tyrians were Phoenician people renowned for their seafaring and trading abilities. As a result, the Phoenicians very quickly became some of the wealthiest people along the Mediterranean coasts, with their trade lines becoming the envy of the empires of the east. Now, according to legend, after a series of political assassinations, the Queen Dido fled Tyre and founded Carthage in Africa. Carthage itself was ideally situated, controlling not just trade lanes of the west, but also the bottleneck that allowed trade from the west to reach the east. As a result, Carthage became extremely wealthy extremely quickly. However, it was not the only Phoenician trading outpost in the area. It seems one of its chief exports was grain, as we have evidence that bread and granaries were traded all the way from North Africa all the way to Crete in Greece. Carthage remained extremely close to its mother city, which still maintained a sort of loose control over its colony, similar to how the British controlled their far-flung American colonies. However, the old city of Utica also held a similar position in Africa. However, for some reason, it was not as prosperous as the new colony. There is a theory going around academic circles that the reason why Carthage was able to expand so quickly was that shortly after the city's founding, it saw an influx of Tyrrhene refugees, all collectively fleeing from first the Babylonian and later Persian conquests of their mother city. It's believed that Carthage, having still maintained a fairly close relationship with its mother city, was more attractive as a land of opportunity to the business-minded Phoenicians, and so its population swelled. As a result, Carthage needed more land in order to feed its growing population. This meant that very quickly the city began to encroach on the local and fellow Phoenician lands, to the point where Carthage became the hegemonic power. Also as a result of Tyrrhene refugees, Carthage basically became the new Tyre, continuing many of the traditions of its mother city, notably expanding its influence overseas. Now, Carthage found itself in a bit of an odd position. Thanks to the swelling of its population from the refugees from Tyre, the city was now the hegemonic power of the Phoenician trade cities in Africa. It also, thanks to its people's maritime prowess, began construction of a powerful trade fleet. This meant that now the city was in direct competition with the established powers of the Western Mediterranean, noticeably the Etruscans, who were already rich from their mines and basically had a monopoly on the north-western trade routes, and the Greeks, who from their base in Sicily controlled everything past the coastlines of Sardinia. Raids on rich Phoenician trade ships were frequent, with many Phoenician colonies along these trade routes feeling threatened by their competitors. What happened next can be seen as comparisons to the events that led to the Athenians forming their own empire. You see, much like the Athenians, the Carthaginians began to use their fleet to protect their fellow Phoenician colonies. Things came to a head when the Phoenicians, again fleeing the Persian Empire, began setting up colonies in Corsica, which at the time had a large population of Greek traders. These Punic Corsicans began essentially pirating Greek and Etruscan ships. This led to a bit of a messy situation, eventually resulting in Carthage, having taken up the mantle as chief Phoenician city from its now humbled mother city, forming an alliance with the Etruscans and driving the Greeks out of Corsica. This in turn led to a conflict with the nearby Massilians, Greeks who had settled in northern France. The Massilians dominated the wine trade, and they didn't take too kindly to losing some of their fellow Greek colonies. The war that followed saw Carthage ultimately achieve a geo-economic victory, cutting off the Straits of Gibraltar to the Greeks. This expansion westwards saw Carthage also begin to protect the already established Phoenician colonies in Hispania, noticeably increasing their influence in the region. What's interesting to note is that all of this was all happening at once, over the course of a single lifetime. Mago I, Carthage's effective ruler at the time, saw Carthage's transition from a prosperous colony that was very much still under the influence of its mother city to a haven for refugees from the mother city to feeding the increased population, resulting in Carthage having to still purchase fight for land, and then because the city now felt duty-bound to protect her fellow colonies, thanks to the fact that Tyre had essentially fallen, rose to become the maritime power of the West. It's important to note that all the colonies the Carthaginians were protecting were not actually formally part of her territory. Instead, they were sort of semi-independent, relying on Carthage for protection of their shipping routes and also trading with other far-flung colonies. But as a whole, they were relatively free to do whatever the heck they wanted. This meant that the Carthaginian Empire, as it's so called, wasn't exactly a true empire, with its administrative capital being Carthage. Instead, it was more of a collection of towns and cities that all looked to Carthage for leadership and protection. As trade prospered, Carthage began founding its own colonies across its new trade empire, increasing the productivity of the trade lanes, whilst also increasing Carthage's own hegemonic power over the other Phoenician colonies. So what do I think of this? Well, I think it's quite interesting to think that the reason why Carthage became an empire was because it felt duty-bound to protect its fellow Phoenician colonies after the fall of Tyre. In many ways, after the Tyrians fled to Carthage, the city basically became Tyre Point 2, continuing the Phoenician trade expansion even after their homeland had fell. I also find it amazing that all of this happened within a single lifetime, and perhaps Mega I should be remembered as one of the greatest rulers of all time. But those are just my thoughts. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you for watching and listening to our videos. Be sure to like, comment and subscribe if you've enjoyed. All sources are listed and linked in the description below. I've been the Ancient History Guy, and as always, I'll be seeing you later.